Welcome everybody to the AZ LAX Report. I'm your host Brian Patillo, and I'm here today with my co-host Alex Garwood. It's another beautiful Sunday, a little bit of a Sunday night now in Arizona, as we're here to give you the latest and greatest lacrosse content in State 48. And as a reminder, we're partnered with BeAGoodHumanCoffee.com. Be a good human, live bravely, and love fiercely. Check out their website for coffee, tea, and merch, where 100% of the profits go to the Fight Like Flow Foundation and support pediatric cancer research. Alex, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. It's kind of bittersweet, coming on the last week of the regular season. We have a pretty senior-heavy team, so it's going to be kind of crazy to just think that this is the last real month that I'm going to be able to coach these guys. So just kind of thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's every season is a unique experience, right? We always say you never get the same team twice. There's always differences to it and everything. So definitely, I can empathize with you there, even though I'm not coaching anybody now. But you mentioned getting into the last week of the season here. We are going to be excited to get ready for the playoffs, but why don't we run down last week's action and kind of update everybody as we get into this last week. I'll start us out here going last Tuesday, April 8th. We had Oro Valley defeating Foothills 17-11. The old battle down in Tucson there. Nate Snavely and Grayson Kang with 4 goals each for Oro Valley. We also had Higley taking on West Valley, defeating them 13-3, 6 points for Caden Sanchez in the win for Higley, while Nathan Bowden, the goalie, did his best with 18 saves for West Valley. Brophy, in a rematch of the matchup against the number 2 team, battled Notre Dame Prep and came away with a solid victory, 20-8. Shorthanded NDP team, they had a few players out with injury. Brophy, I think, was just able to kind of take advantage of that. Eric Wolfson, huge night, 10 points. We don't always see the 10-point nights there. 6 goals and 4 assists, so he was tough to stop there. Moving on, Corona, and this was a big one. So last week, if you're a fan of the pod, you got to hear Coach PJ Rovinelli. We had a little bit of the AZ LAX Report bump.
That's right. That's right.
Corona, we give them a little bump there, pump the tires a bit, talk about the program, and they come up with a big victory over Perry, 6-5. Big night for the attack unit. 5 of the 6 points, 5 of the 6 goals actually, behind Ben Martinez and Elijah Smith. Strong defensive play. Tanner Merrick had a good day against friend of the pod, Dylan Finder. We hear about him a lot. He's been wreaking havoc against some teams, but good defensive stop there, as well as with Elijah Kwan against Jace White, holding him down in the attack and defensive matchup. And then goalie Grant Miller, we talked about him last week also in the interview with PJ, 13 saves, backstop the defense. Good team W for the Aztecs there. And then Alex, Pinnacle, you beat Tahoma, Washington. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so a little bit outside of the ALL, we hosted 2 out-of-state teams from Washington last week. We played Tahoma on Tuesday, won 13-5. It was a really good performance from guys that are typically not getting a ton of PT. We have a lot of guys that were banged up and not able to play last week due to sickness or anything else. You could probably tell from Brian and I's voice that allergy season is hitting strong and and everything else. So
over here.
So we great performance from guys. A lot of first goals, which is just awesome to see. Guys get their first varsity goals. So it was a good night for us. I'll kind of continue on and talk about Wednesday. We had one game. Cactus Shadows beat NDP Varsity 2 5-4. No stats on that one, but clearly a defensive battle. Man, those really low scoring games are really kind of fun in its own way. It's always fun to get like a 16-14 shootout, but there's something to be said about these low scoring games too. Probably very intense. So credit to Cactus Shadows there. Friday night was a huge night for ALL action. We had Arcadia beating Scottsdale 10-7. Luke Mellon, Kyle Lambeth, and Davis Witherspoon with 3 goals each. The old triple hat trick and 12 saves for Gavin Fuller. So I'm going to call that another AZ LAX report bump, Brian.
That's true. Good point,
Davis,
right? I mean,
Davis
we did have the Spoon
That's
Man
right.
there on the podcast as well. So,
yep,
nice.
More credit to us. Brophy Varsity 2 defeating Sal Point 13-1. The fun fact for that game: 9 players recording at least 1 goal for Brophy Varsity 2. So that's that old balanced offense that we talked about last week that we love to see. Notre Dame Prep, very close victory over Boulder Creek on Friday, 10-8. Clancy, 5 points in the loss for BC, while Dylan Rarden paced the Saints with 6 points along with 15 saves from Luke Lamont. So excellent goalie play there. A lot of good shooters on that BC team. Yeah,
from that Brophy matchup.
Yeah, definitely. West Valley, man, dominant win over Cactus 17-4. No stats on that one, but we anticipate a great goalie play from West Valley with Nathan Bowden there, and the offense coming alive, scoring 17 goals. So great job, West Valley. Corona beat Foothills 8-5. So the AZ LAX report bump continued into the week as they took down Foothills 8-5 in a fairly low scoring, close kind of defensive matchup. And then finally, to wrap up ALL action, Brophy took down Perry 9-1, which is that the lowest points total that the Brophy offense has put up this year, Brian?
That's a good point. That, I mean, in terms of league play,
right?
I think you're correct there.
Yeah.
Hard to think off the top of my head here if they've had another one. So yeah, good defensive effort there by Perry.
Yeah, and it seems like 6-0 in the first half, and another 3-goal performance from Eric. Aiden Schuyler, slowed down but could not stop the Brophy offense. He had 18 saves in the loss, but with a 67 save percentage on the night. So it looked like Aiden really kind of kept him in that game. The defense, held strong and kept Brophy under 10, I think, for the first time this season. So credit to Perry there. Brophy took the win. Outside the ALL, Pinnacle hosted Issaquah, another team from Washington. They're typically a very strong, top 3 team in the state. Had a lot of young guys on their squad this season. Pinnacle won 11-9. Very similar to Tahoma. Had a lot of new faces out there for us, and they performed well under the lights and got them some good experience. We started that game off really strong, 5-0, and we kind of coasted from there, and we need to just kind of figure out how to keep the intensity up during those games where you go up by a lot, and you kind of have to keep the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, that's it's a battle, and as you said, it's always good when you get guys a lot of reps into and kind of help work on building that depth and everything. And that, I think, wraps up a busy penultimate week here for the ALL. And going into this next week here, just kind of glancing at the schedule, it's about, I think, 4 games that kind of jumped out to me, may have some ramifications for seeding purposes. On Tuesday, 4/16, Brophy plays Desert Vista, and Perry plays your Pinnacle Pioneers there, Alex. So big game Tuesday night. And then Friday, 4/19, the last day of the ALL. There's a lot of action there. Just again, glancing at the schedule, Higley plays Cactus Shadows, and you again, Pinnacle playing Desert Vista. So some big matchups for seeding. And I think that's something that we should kind of talk about here before we get to next week's episode. So, previously we've talked about the rankings. We've released them on Monday. We'll put them up again tomorrow. If you're hearing this, or actually you may even hear this Monday, we'll put the in-state rankings up. But after the final day of ALL action on April 19th, on April 20th, that Saturday, the final rankings will release, which will then determine the seeding for the playoffs for the ALL. Now, Alex, you're going to be focusing on coaching and getting ready for, your matchups and going through the season. For myself and for our listeners here, we're going to do a little AZ LAX Report bracket challenge. So I am working on some of the behind-the-scenes stuff for this. It'll be an online website. We want to encourage everybody to take part in this. We'll have all entrants. I think you'll just need an email address. We're going to ask everybody, if you want to play along, fill out a bracket, get it in before the first round of playoffs start on April 23rd. And that will be, we'll see who wins the AZ LAX Report bracket challenge, the first ever. I don't know what we're going to do for prizes. I think we want to see if maybe we can get some future AZ LAX Report swag set up for the winner here, Alex. But it'd be interesting to see. We got a lot of fans out there. See who they think is going to win, and if they can predict the bracket better than us. And on top of that, going into our podcast after that, so the rankings will come out Saturday. We'll do our podcast that weekend. We're going to bring on a couple special guests to share their brackets and give their previews for our first round playoff matchups and the playoffs overall. So I don't know, Alex, what do you think? I don't want you're coaching, so you don't get to figure one out. Are you going to support me in my bracket choice?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if you make the right choice, when I take a look at that bracket. But I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea for everybody to get involved and to kind of see, who all the Homer fans are, and to see who actually puts together a competitive bracket. So, by the way,
exactly.
I probably would slip into the Homer category there. So. I'm gonna leave it at that and kind of leave the bracketology to you while I focus on coaching. So
yeah, exactly, very understandable. And as I said, I'm going to line up a couple special guests who will join us and share their brackets, and we'll talk about it with everybody. So it should be a fun time as we preview the playoffs. We've been doing this for, I guess, 6 or 7 weeks now, right? We're excited, man. I'm excited. I mean, I'm sure you're raring to go and get into the playoffs now as a coach and as a fan for me to watch. I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm excited for next week's episode and really seeing how everything's going to shake up with the matchups there.
Definitely. Yeah.
So let's take a quick kind of glance outside the ALL. Anything you've been watching this week coming up here, Alex?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching Virginia-Syracuse next weekend. It's always just a great game anytime those two guys meet on the field. Virginia's ranked number 2 right now, and Syracuse is 7. So, top 10 matchup. You also have kind of rivalry week with Maryland, Johns Hopkins. So, that's always a battle there. You have some of the Ivies going up against each other, Penn, Princeton. I'm trying to think like some of the other big ones. Princeton, Yale. So we have some good games coming up at the college level that I'm looking forward to watching. But outside of lacrosse, I don't know. Have you heard that the argument, who would win in a battle, a gorilla or a grizzly bear? Have you heard that?
Yes.
So there's been a new development. So I was initially a big gorilla guy. I'm like, there's just no way a silverback gorilla is going to lose a fight. Like, it's got thumbs.
I would have been grizzly bear.
It's super strong. Like, I was at the San Diego Zoo one time, and I watched one charge and was convinced that it was the strongest animal on the planet. But I was listening to something, and I can't remember where it was or what context, but they made a really good point that, at the end of the day, a gorilla is like, the same height as a human, right? And it's 300, 400 pounds maybe on the heavy side, and a grizzly bear could be like a Kodiak grizzly bear could be like 1,000 pounds. It's
They're
like,
enormous.
and they're like
Yeah.
9 feet tall, and I guess their skull is just abnormally thick and can like withstand like bullets and like and the
Jeez.
other thing
Yeah.
yeah, right, and the other thing is like its weapons, right? Like a grizzly bear can use its fangs and its teeth and everything, and it's got these long claws that can cut through flesh and bone and that kind of thing. It's like, well, a gorilla can just pound it's whatever it's fighting, right, to try to take it down. But if you hit a big gorilla, it's like, have you have you ever just like like hit like a buddy that was just like huge, and they're just like they just kind of
Like
laugh
a little
it
love
off.
tap. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I
just
heard
brush it
that
off.
kind of argument, it's like the lack of weapons on the gorilla side. It really kind of, it doesn't matter how much more intelligent a gorilla bear or a gorilla is than a grizzly bear. I just so my mind just got blown, and I changed teams, so I'm Team Grizzly Bear now. So that's a pretty big development.
Yeah, there you go. I think you did a great breakdown of the tape there with some film study and the matchup, and yeah.
Hey, if
I
you
think
disagree
those are
though, if you
huge,
disagree,
man.
go ahead and put it in the comments. Explain your reason why you think a gorilla would beat a grizzly, but I'm just not convinced at this point unless someone's got some further evidence.
Well, we'll see what everyone has there in the comments, and again, we want to thank everybody for listening here. We've got 2 good interviews coming up. We're gonna be talking with some face-off specialists, so I
Yeah.
know that's a little bit niche in terms of the positions, but some good stories from our guests coming up there, talking about their experiences and the face-off position as it pertains to lacrosse overall. So excited to share that for everybody, and really excited for next week's episode. Keep an eye out for it, and even prior to that, we're going to try to get that bracket link up either on Saturday or Sunday morning prior to the episode coming out. So keep an eye on Instagram. We will share the link for that bracket challenge, and hopefully we can get everybody taking part, and we'll see who the first annual bracket challenge winner is. All right, Alex, that's all I got. Are you ready for the week here?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready
Huh.
for the week. I'm ready for our guests. I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, everybody, enjoy our guests, enjoy the rest of the podcast, and we will talk for everybody next week. Our player interview this week on the AZ LAX report is the junior face-off man from Scottsdale High, Jack Berman. Jack, how you doing tonight? Thanks for
I'm
joining
good.
us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no,
All right, awesome.
thanks for hopping on. We just had a familiar, face of yours on as our coach interview, Mr. Bud Neff.
Ooh.
Yeah, so how he kind of gave us the skinny on, he's been working with you and a few other guys in the valley on, your craft and getting better. But before we get into that, how did you, first get introduced to lacrosse?
So I would say like end of 8th grade, my mom practically begged me to play because she's from California. She went to Thatcher. Her team was like the first like women's high school team in the state of California, I think. So she
Wow.
really loved the sport.
Yeah.
So she tried to get me to play, and then like finally I was just like, you know what, I'll give in. And then I like went to like a beginners camp with one of my friends, and just like it was just so much fun, and I just like kept it rolling from there.
Was this in California or Arizona?
This was here in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
my mom's from California, but I've lived here my entire life.
Oh, okay. And how old were you?
Um, End of 8th grade, so maybe like 14.
Wow. Okay. Brian, isn't it crazy how late people start lacrosse here and get to the level that Jack's at?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we just heard it, right? From
Yeah.
not to spoil people who listen to their interview, but Bud Neff, the coach, was a late starter too. So it's pretty impressive. Everybody who's been able to find the sport later in their high school athletic career and jump into it and be successful. So that's
Absolutely.
that's pretty awesome. So let's just kind of talk a little bit about your season now. I know you had a little bit of kind of some turmoil, I guess we would say, and kind of confusion to start the year. the program sort of transitioning the name of it and the function of it, and then with some coaching changes as the season started. So what's been kind of the focus for you and the team as players, and kind of the message from the coaching staff going through this season? What are you guys focusing on as you go game to game?
Just coming together as an entire team. Like I want to say most of our players, like all credit to them, first year players, like doing amazing, I'll say. But first year players don't really know the game. Like coaches gotta coach them up. But it's all about like coming together. There's a lot of games where we had where like offense is super hot, defense is kind of off, or defense is super on, but offense is off. But just like coming together and like having the blend of the two like in the game is just like super key. And once we get that, like we're a pretty tough team, I'd say.
Definitely. Um, on the face-off front, you've faced a lot of talented face-off guys this season. Who's given you, I guess, the biggest battle, and who do you kind of look forward to going up against week to week in the ALL?
Uh I've gone up against my buddy Jordan Gutierrez
Yeah,
Nelson.
yeah.
Love going up against him. Always a good fight there. I went up against Levi Shoemaker not too long ago. Always a great fight with him.
Hmm.
Gotta say, NDP was probably my hardest game. Just because like the wing play was just such a factor. They have such good wings, and all credit to Caleb Casey. He's a pretty good face-off man himself. So just like that, just getting hounded on is just like they're just so coordinated. That was probably my toughest game.
Yeah, friend of the pod, Jake Trailers, a menace on the wing.
Yeah, I just got to watch them against Brophy on the last broadcast I was doing, and yeah, Caleb had the chance to kind of coach with Caleb too, good player, and but the team effort on the face off X is pretty key there. Something I always talk about on the broadcast, how important it is. So I guess this is probably something else I was thinking about. This we should ask Bud, like they have you, when you've been facing off, Jack, have you had to go through some of these like face off changes in terms of rules, or have they all been the same like while you've been playing for the most part?
They've all been the same while I've been playing.
Hmm.
I think I started facing off the beginning of my fr like this like my freshman year, like the second week like before our game. Like I started facing off, and by then we were already doing stand up, so I never had to do the transition from knee down to stand up. So I was just coached the right way from the start.
Did you? Everyone's got kind of an interesting story, how they found their position. If it's either a goalie or a face-off guy, how did you start facing off?
So weirdly enough, I used to be an attackman, and I'll tell everyone I was nasty, but they'll never believe me, so it's whatever. But
That's what I say about my golf swing too. I hear you. Nobody
That's
exactly.
nobody
right. That's
believes
right.
me, but it's the truth.
In my prime, I was like that. But um, we were at a scrimmage one day in practice, and one I was just like, Let me take a face off. We're getting like killed out here, like my freshman year. Like, let me just take a face off just for fun." And like, I guess I did pretty good. And then my JV coach at the time was like, "Wow, like what's going on here?" So then, I think from then on, it just kind of like spiraled from there. And then, yeah.
What about facing off like drew you to it, besides like maybe kind of just having some, natural talent to it? Like what about the face off action is what kind of drives you?
Just its like specificality. Like the only people who get what we do is our other face-off guys.
Hmm.
And like that's what you can like bond with people over. It's such a specialized position. All the eyes are on you, all the pressure's on you. So it just makes you like want to perform more.
I like that. And you've got kind of the competition, that aspect of just you and the other person, right? Like what you're so specifically trained to do this one thing. And yeah, that's it's definitely, it is an interesting thing when you think about the specialization of like those positions and stuff. So
Yeah.
outside of, maybe specific to facing off, but just kind of within your lacrosse career, as you were sort of talking about it, what's been your favorite lacrosse memory so far?
Uh, huh. Probably I think this season, our first win, I think that was really special, especially for like a lot of other guys on the team who have never played lacrosse before. Just getting to experience like that first win, or even the win versus Oro Valley where we came back like 6 goals. Like that's just our team coming together and playing as a team, and just like, yeah, I don't know. But definitely those like special moments where it's like our team in the moment, and that's all we got around us.
Yeah, big wins are always, amazing memories, and I'm sure you're, looking to make some more of those memories and get some big wins at the next level. What are your kind of future lacrosse plans? Are you thinking about playing at the next level, or have you visited any schools yet? What's the status there?
I have visited some schools. It's still fairly, I wouldn't say fairly early, but I'm kind of getting into the thick of it. I mean, I still have plenty of time, but that's definitely the plan to play in college.
Where have you gone to visit so far?
Um, I've been to Colorado College specifically. I go to a few more colleges over the summer, just kind of check them out.
Yeah.
But I'm looking probably maybe like high level, like D2, D3.
Do you know what
Nice.
you want to do, like not lacrosse wise? Like, what do you want to go to school for? Like,
I'm
do you have
still
schools in mind with that?
I'm still figuring that part out, but
Okay.
plenty of time for
Yeah, you got
decide
time.
that. So, well, it'll come to me when it comes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so we know this question, usually we ask this kind of broadly and kind of get some good answers, and maybe you can answer it broadly, but you're a face-off guy, right? And I don't know how many face-off guys we have listening to the podcast, or future aspiring face-off players. Same thing with goalies, right? Like we're in a little bit of a smaller pool. But if you did, you were talking to a young player who's a face-off guy for his team, and wants to know how to get better, what advice would you give them to be a better player and play at, the varsity level in the ALL?
Uh, just stick with it, honestly, because for me, eventually, like I want to say like the January leading up to my sophomore year season, like it just clicked. Like I just got it. And I don't know, you just have to find what's right for you. There is no like right way to face off. There's like good ways, bad ways. You have to find what way works for you. So just sticking with it and just working hard and just doing what you're supposed to do, and you'll be just fine.
Are there any players that you look at that you try to emulate their game or like their style?
Definitely. Mason Cohn out of Syracuse. I watch his film on YouTube way too much, but uh yeah, definitely him, especially coming up as a D3 transfer from Tots, now playing at Syracuse, and like
Yeah, go Jumbos.
I think he's like 70% on the season right now. Like it's like super impressive, and like I really like his style.
Wow. Do you watch any of the guys that like like the TD Erlins or the Trevor Baptistes?
Not too much because in the pros mostly it's all knee down, whereas in
Mm.
college they do stand up. So I try to watch more college as opposed to the pros.
Yeah, they had to
Yeah.
allegedly change the rules because of a couple of those pros were a little bit too dominant, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
It it's crazy with those rule changes. I mean,
yeah,
even when I was playing, right? It's like, I mean, just the motorcycle grip, like just the idea that it's like, oh, you can't hold your stick this way.
yeah.
It's like, why? Like that's crazy.
Yeah,
But
but I
I
mean,
was,
it makes the difference.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I was
I
thinking
think
back.
the change that change was basically, and you guys can maybe correct me if I'm wrong on this, was face-offs were taking way too long. Like there
Hmm.
would be some like engagements where it'd be like 30 seconds or so that guys or two motorcycle guys kind of clash together and they're just still fighting for the ball. 30 seconds is kind of a long time when you're counting it out, and it's a long time when you're watching a face-off. It's probably exhausting too for you just kind of circling the ball like that. But I think that had a lot to do with it. Um, but
Yeah, I
the
think
talk
that's
of
true.
like specialization and kind of positional breakouts. Like I know at our practice we have positional breakouts for the offensive middies and attackmen, defense, goalies, face-off guys. How much time do you spend a day at practice just perfecting your craft or just working on face-off stuff?
I think like the first like 20 minutes, like once we're done stretching, we'll go into our warm-up groups. Defense, we go defense. Offense will do their passing and stuff. And then me and my backup will just go to the corner and we'll just take face-offs just to kind of like keep us sharp.
Gotcha. What are your kind of go-to kind of warm-up drills that you and your other face-off guys Scottsdale do?
Um, First off, I have to stretch my hips out.
Mm.
Open like flexible hips, very important. I'll go chops. Just try and keep my hands hot, and then I'll just go like clamps, no exits. I'll just try and drive into the ball as hard as I can, and then I want to say for at least like 15 minutes, we'll just go straight lives, just try to get that game feeling.
Wow.
Solid there. That's yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. It's been a late night. I
I'm
lost
still
my train
I'm
of
still
thought on
blown
that one.
away by like the 20 minutes of live face-offs. Like that's got to be
Yeah, I'm
pretty
thinking just
exhausting.
like,
Like at the first like
yeah.
20 minutes of practice, you're just ripping 20 like how many reps is that? 20 minutes of live face-offs.
Well, maybe not 20, maybe like 10 to 15.
Okay.
But I mean
It's still a
still
lot. It's
it's
still a
still a decent
lot.
amount of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I imagine close to somewhere between like maybe like 40 and 60, something like that.
And how many do you take in a game on average?
On average, I imagine probably like 20 to like 20, 25, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean in the game it's different because then I gotta run around and I gotta find the outlet or run all the way down to the attackman or go play in defense or in practice. Like once you get it out, that's kind of it. You just go
Mm,
back and like reset.
definitely.
There you
Um,
go. So let's thanks for jumping on with us. We like to ask a kind of few questions here at the end. So when you're not working on that face-off game, what are your off the field hobbies? What are you into?
Um, Love playing video games with my friends, just sit back and relax. Love working
All
out,
right.
gotta
So
stay
what are you
strong.
what are you playing?
Right now we're on the 2 week Minecraft grind.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I would have thought it would have been a game that had, reflexes attached to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta sit back and relax.
Yeah,
But
there you
there
go.
sometimes that
Yeah,
those reflex games do come into the mix. Or
gotcha.
The
We
relaxing,
should
that's
we
that's
should have
pretty
asked
good.
Brandon if he was a gamer. Every face-off guy I know just like, rips the sticks.
oh, definitely.
Yeah, pretty solid. And then going back to like your team there over with Scottsdale. So who's the DJ on the team? Who's running the music?
DJ Elijah Bankwell.
All right. What's he playing? What's your like your go-to songs there?
I don't know any of the go-to songs, but lots of rap and hip hop. Just kind of get the boys pumped up.
Hmm.
The old rap and hip hop. Not a lot of old school rock guys anymore,
Not
Alex.
a lot of old school
It's a
rock,
shame.
but
No, we've been starting to implement like a throwback Thursday at practice, which has been
Ooh.
very nice because the music is a little bit more tasteful for the coaches, and the
yeah.
players get
There you
into it
go.
too. But I understand guys got to play their favorites. Who's the energy guy on the team? The guy that's pumping everybody up. The guy that's maybe the class clown, like just keeping it light. Who's that guy?
That would be my fellow captain Tyler Morrison.
Ah,
Always coming in with those post-quarter halftime speeches, just getting everyone fired up. Does a great job at that.
Solid. Well, hey, listen, Jack, we appreciate your time tonight. And I know we're going into the last weekend of regular season here, so want to wish you luck with the rest of the season and
Thank you.
good luck in the playoffs when that comes around as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
yeah, of course. Good luck this season.
Thank you.
Our next guest is an Arizona native, having played high school lacrosse at Desert Vista before going on to Manhattanville College. This former faceoff specialist has now turned to coaching, where he works with a variety of teams and players, helping to hone their faceoff abilities. Welcome to the podcast, Brandon Bud Neff. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys for having me on. I'm excited to talk some lacrosse.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. It's a little bit different. You're our first kind of objective coach, I guess, not tied to really any specific team. And with your background, you're helping a lot of different teams in the Valley. What does your current coaching landscape look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I kind of try to give help to whoever needs it and whoever wants it. And sort of the motivation. So I was at Desert Vista the past couple of years, and the motivation for wanting to coach, all of Arizona, like all the high schools and some of the colleges too, was to grow the sport. And I felt like there aren't a ton of face-off coaches in Arizona. Brian, you can understand from like a positional coach perspective, like there are a couple good goalie coaches, a couple good goalie coaches. I don't know of a lot of other face-off coaches who either live in Arizona, spend all their time here, and are available to coach kids as much as I can. And so the motivation was, I didn't want to just help Desert Vista. I wanted to help all of these other schools as well. So this last year, I took a step back from Desert Vista, where I'm still working there once a week, and basically offered my services to any high school or college around Arizona who wants it.
That's awesome.
The old mercenary coach there.
That's right.
You're a hired gun.
Hired gun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's interesting because, right, there is the perspective of like, you just want to work for all of these teams. But as I mentioned, the real motivation was like to help the sport here in Arizona. And I would watch other face-off guys from other teams who had a ton of talent. And I would think to myself, man, if I could just refine them a little bit more, like I could help them be the best player that they can be and help them get to the highest level they can. And that was the real motivation behind taking the step away from a single team and like you said, wanting to be the mercenary coach.
So could you name off like the schools or like players that you're like, maybe not players, so we don't have to, you don't have to give away all the secrets or anything, but like,
Yeah,
well, I guess
sure.
there's only usually one FOGO per team, so I guess either way. But I don't know, give us a sample of some of the teams that you're working with.
Yeah, so I still continue to work at Desert Vista. I work at Brophy. I work at Corona. I've helped out at West Valley a little bit this year. And then I've been down once a week in Tucson helping out University of Arizona lacrosse.
Oh, nice. There you go. So you're getting some other levels of play as well. So that's good. So let's take a step back then from your coaching. You're an Arizona native, at least in terms of lacrosse. You can correct me if I'm wrong otherwise, but you played at Desert Vista, went through college, ended up becoming this face-off coach. So just take us through the start from like how you found the sport, how you started playing, and how you ultimately got to the position you're in now.
Yeah, this is probably going to be the interesting story because there's some turns that aren't exactly expected. So I didn't start playing lacrosse. I didn't start playing lacrosse until I was a freshman in high school, and my friends had played for a few years. And at that time, I don't know if someone on the podcast has mentioned it, but Ahwatukee had something really special with what they were growing in terms of lacrosse. And I know one of the kids I graduated with, Cade Van Raphorst, he's actually on a lacrosse podcast talking about this figure, Matt Rakowski. And Matt Rakowski was the lacrosse community in Ahwatukee, especially in Arizona, owes a lot to him for the number of kids he just got involved in the sport. And so Matt used to basically find the best athletes, the best youth athletes in Arizona, and got everybody playing lacrosse. And so growing up in Ahwatukee, all of my friends started playing. And so freshman year of high school, I got cut from the 8th grade basketball team, and I was like, well, let me give lacrosse a try, see how this goes. And then I think like most people who try lacrosse, you just sort of fall in love with the sport. It's such an amazing sport. It's easy to pour yourself into. And it's a sport that I feel like really rewards the amount of work that you put in. Where I think some other sports like basketball, for example, if you're not 6'6", 6'7", you kind of have to give up your hopes on a professional or college career pretty early. Whereas lacrosse, there's almost room for everybody.
Mm.
I used to joke that if you're 7 feet tall and you can, this is probably bad. I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. If you're 7 feet tall and you can walk and chew gum at the same time, then you can like probably make the NBA, at least like get a chance, like.
Yeah, I read some statistic that like 18 to 20% of people who are over 7 feet make the NBA.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, like you said,
because
if you're
like
tall
it's that old like trope of like the high school gym coach just seeing some super crazy tall kid be like, "Hey, bud, you play basketball?" It's like, "Nope, all right, come out to practice." They just recruit them. Yeah.
Yeah, can't teach height, right? Can't teach height.
And I feel like this is one big advantage of lacrosse, or if you're an athlete playing lacrosse, is there's a position for everybody. There are these almost 7 feet tall players, right? They make great defensemen, or maybe they'll make a great midfielder that's impossible to stop. But if you're short, there's a number of other positions. You can be a great attackman, great offensive player, great fogo. There's a place for everybody, no matter what your build is on the lacrosse field.
Is there a certain like X, or I guess other sport that translates well into being like a great face-off specialist? Like I've always heard wrestlers make good face-off guys. Is there like another sport that you found is like, wow, like what sport did you used to play? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I see that. Like, is there an example of that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think wrestling's the big one. I'm saying that as someone who never did wrestling, but especially coaching, you can tell the kids that wrestle.
Yeah.
I think the two most important aspects are, one, flexibility. I think wrestlers are used to being very low to the ground, right? Mm-hmm. They're used to being really flexible with their hips, and they're used to, generating power and leverage like from those positions. And then, the second point I was going to say is like generating strength from those positions. It's uncomfortable whether you're knee down, right, as the face-off rules used to be, or whether you're in, standing neutral grip. It's uncomfortable to be in those positions, but wrestlers spend all of their time, working on this, becoming more comfortable, like gaining more mobility and being able to generate more leverage and strength from those positions. So I think it's a kind of a natural position for wrestlers to play.
Mm.
Our high school Fogo was a wrestler, so I've definitely seen that. Like, and they're just tough kids too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of face-off plays, ground balls, right, after and fighting for it. So I feel like you get that. So how did you? So you started playing ninth grade. You end up playing lacrosse there and everything. Yeah, keep going.
So it's a good
story
here. I can continue the story. So at Desert Vista, I wasn't a face-off guy really at all. I played LSM, and I would consider myself like a pretty good LSM in my own right. I mean, that's what I got recruited to play college lacrosse for. And to have a testament to how good, as I mentioned, like these Ahwatukee Desert Vista teams were at the time, like how special really the group was. Some of the kids might know like the club team West Coast Stars. Like I was an LSM on West Coast Stars, and I was like the 4th or 5th best pull on the Desert Vista team. We were really deep, and I attribute like just the level of talent and how good my teammates were. Like that all played a role in me developing as a lacrosse player. I don't think in 4 years you can become a very good lacrosse player if you're not playing with other very good lacrosse players.
Mm.
And so, I got recruited as an LSM. And I remember my freshman year, my head coach, Ryder Bolander, was a Maryland alum. And he's pretty old school. And this is right around the time that the position really started to become specialized. I mean, it had started happening in the few years before, but not like it was really developing that year. I think this is when Trevor Baptiste really came onto the scene in a big way. We were, he, as I mentioned, he was old school. So he kind of thought, just put your most athletic midfielder at the faceoff dot. And like 3 games into the season, we were like 20% on faceoffs as a team at Manhattanville. And I had taken between 5 and 10 faceoffs in high school. And I had mentioned that to my coach that, I took some faceoffs in high school. And so we were really struggling at the X, and he asked me, Neff, like, you took some faceoffs in high school. Can you take some for the team? And as a freshman who, was a little wet behind the ears, I was like, yes, coach, whatever you need, I'll do it. And it was a little bit like serendipitous how it happened. I went out there for a face-off with my long pole, and that was the first year that they required 6 inches of tape on the top of your stick. So I couldn't use that stick, so we said, we'll go use a short stick. And I'm thinking, coach, I've never played short stick. I don't know what's going on here, but okay, I'll use a short stick. And then I won my first 2 face-offs that I ever took with a short stick in an NCAA Division III lacrosse game. And after that, he gave me the opportunity. He said, well, we need someone here. You have naturally fast hands. And it was sort of up to me to go on YouTube and look up all of the Face-Off Academy resources and basically teach myself, because we didn't have a face-off coach. There's a reason we were going 20% at the X.
I think that's like just a.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I was just gonna say and not to interrupt like the rest of the story there, but I think it just goes to show for like obviously we have a lot of kids who listen, and like we want a lot of kids to listen, that like you're not ever really like set in what you're doing, right? Like there's opportunities, and you grabbed an opportunity that was put in front of you from your coaches and found a way to excel at it. So I mean that's awesome.
And look where it's taken me. There was
exactly.
There were a lot of moments in college lacrosse where facing off is hard, and we were in a good conference. There were some very talented face-off guys. There were a number of Division I face-off guys who transferred back home because we were in like we played a lot of the Long Island teams. We were in some like, I don't want to call it upstate New York, but we were in like Westchester County, New York. There were a lot of
You're
really
upstate. Anything above the city's upstate. So just as the resident Long Island guy for the podcast here, we'll make that rule. I used to argue with my college teammates who were from Westchester. We played with a kid from Chappaqua, who was my roommate, and he would get upset when we would tell him he's from upstate. He's like, I live closer to Manhattan than you do. I'm like, yeah, but you're still up the state, like
from New York.
Like yeah. So yeah, we played the upstate teams.
Your reasoning is sound to me. I hope some of my teammates, I don't get text messages like saying that they never want to talk to me again. But the point is that there were some great homegrown face-off guys playing for these teams, and it was really frustrating as someone who didn't do it all throughout high school. And you mentioned like lots of kids listen to this podcast. Like there were a lot of times where I thought, man, like why did I switch positions? Like I was pretty good at this other thing. But you don't know where it'll take you. And eventually, like I think found my identity at that position and really learned to love it. And ended up as kind of a middle of the pack face-off guy in college, which I'm proud of. Again, I never really did this until I was in college. And to compete with guys who, had been doing it their whole lives, like I'm pretty proud of what I was able to accomplish. And then after I graduated, I ended up back in Arizona, doing grad school at Arizona State. And I was playing in a LAX game, and Coach Dan Landon at Desert Vista didn't even know I took face-offs. Saw me doing pretty well at face-offs because he referees the men's league game, and said, hey, bud, like, will you come coach our face-off guys? Like, we don't have a face-off coach, and you know what you're doing. I didn't know you took face-offs, but it would be great if you could come by. So I went to Desert Vista, and this was during COVID when we were all working from home. And I think Dan had in mind that I would just come one day, like for a special event, special occasion sort of coaching. But I just started showing up every day because the alternative was to continue being in my house. And this was a great opportunity to get outside and then work with kids and kind of give back to the sport that gave me a lot. And eventually, like I said, I started being there every single day. And soon enough, I started hearing from kids from other teams, hey, like we hear you're working with Desert Vista. The Fogos seem to be developing. Can you come out, do a private lesson? Can you come train me or my kid? And so I started doing that. And then, I sort of built up, I guess, a client base of like 5 or 6 kids that I was working with pretty regularly. And then Face Off Academy had an event out in Arizona, run by Colby Cohen, who's now in Pennsylvania, and he works for Lawrenceville, coaching, the really high level prep school for lacrosse. He coaches their face-offs. But
yeah,
Colby,
they're
actually,
they're like the number 1 team in the country right now, right?
Yeah, Colby's legit. Colby is a really good face-off coach. And it's him that got me involved with Face Off Academy. So Colby ran an event out here in Arizona because there's a demand for face-off training because, like I said, there aren't a ton of face-off coaches here, especially not ones with a ton of training and knowledge and the reputation that the Face-Off Academy carries. And Colby had actually lived out here. He helped University of Arizona down in Tucson, so he had, developed some rapport here in Arizona working with kids. And one parent suggested, they said, why don't you come to the Face Off Academy event and help Colby out? And I didn't want to step on his toes. I knew nothing about this person. So I got his number. I shot him a text, said, hey, I'm happy to help you out. And I'd also love to learn what you're coaching and how I can adapt my coaching. And I went out, we had a great conversation. It was a lot of fun working with him. And then at the end of the event, he suggested, there's lots of kids in Arizona who want to train. He had previously trained many of them, and now there isn't a coach here. And he suggested I reach out to Face Off Academy and he would advocate for me and, love to get me set up here in Arizona working with them. And so emailed Greg Garemlian and had a phone call. And at the time I didn't realize it was an interview, but it was absolutely an interview. And he just asked questions about why do you want to get involved? Why don't you continue training privately? It seems to be working for you, sort of these questions. And my answers were honest. I talked about, I want to help the sport in Arizona and to be able to bring the resources that Face Off Academy has, whether that's our ability to host events, rent these facilities for the kids, in addition to bringing these coaches out here, and then also having the recruiting network to be able to get these kids to the best place they can go. That's all so exciting. And as someone who grew up here in Arizona, I'm so passionate about providing that resource to the kids here, because I think in a lot of ways that wasn't here for me when I was growing up. And it would be awesome if I could help bring that here to Arizona.
Yeah, I think. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, anything that always definitely touches me when people just talk about helping Arizona because they've kind of either, or in your situation where you grew up here and you want to provide resources that you never had access to, or like Brian and I who come from out of state and kind of have seen what it's like on the other side and want that for Arizona. So it's always just awesome hearing, guys like you who are truly helping the sport. It's awesome.
Yeah. And Alex, I want to, there are you mentioned it on the podcast with Coach Rovinelli with PJ. There's really good lacrosse at GCU, at ASU, at NAU, U of A. But I think that it's important, if you're serious about helping grow the sport in Arizona, it's important to get some exposure to the lacrosse in the Northeast, or somewhere where there's somewhere where lacrosse is really established. Right. And I think going to Manhattanville and being, as Brian said, upstate, and being on a team that is half Long Islanders really gives you a sense of what a sustainable lacrosse culture needs to look like. And I think sometimes the people who stay here, although they may have the best intentions, don't have the perspective to construct, a sustainable lacrosse culture because they've never been in a place where there is one. So I think that was really. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Brian.
No, Jake, we've said that in a few different interviews. Yeah, the idea of being able to bring in the culture and grow the sport. And I was going to say, you've worked with a lot of players. You mentioned all the schools you're working with. I like to joke around about how the stellar goalie play in the ALL is due to my efforts in training and coaching everybody, which I say facetiously, but I think it's really cool that you're bringing that, because we've talked about let's take Coach Harbison, right? In Brophy, which is in my time out here the most successful program, and we've talked about how he brings his experiences to that team and building the culture of it. It's pretty cool that you're helping to bring your aspects of successful culture to multiple teams through working with the face-off specialists and through the work you're doing. So kind of, two different approaches, but I think things that are necessary for the sport to continue to grow here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just being from the Northeast doesn't make you a good coach, but I think I think there's like Brian, people like you are really valuable in the sport, especially in Arizona, because you have lived and grew up in a place where, like I mentioned, there really is sustainable lacrosse culture, where it's part of the region you grew up in. And I think the dream for everybody who I think really does care about lacrosse in Arizona is to establish that here. And like you mentioned, Pat, Pat, another East Coast guy, I think he's DeMatha alum. You can edit that out if that's wrong. But
yeah, he is
like
DeMatha guy. Yeah,
Coach Pat provides something really, really valuable, like bringing like the parts of DeMatha culture, parts of the culture that are integral to like the region he grew up in over here. This is, if you ever have a podcast episode about how to grow Arizona lacrosse, what has been successful, what hasn't been successful, sort of its ups and downs, that'd be an interesting episode. I would love to listen to it because this is something I've thought about a lot, and I've talked to these other coaches as well. And it's, if we had a recipe for it, or if we had the solution for it, I think we all would have solved it. But it's not an easy problem to solve.
Yeah, I think so too. I think anytime you get, too many cooks in the kitchen pulling the same way, kind of, serving self-interest, I think that is, probably the hardest thing that's hurting Arizona lacrosse. And, the more we can get everybody pulling in the same direction, I think the better it's going to be for the sport. At least in, things that I've seen and everything else. And when you look back, how many high school programs were there when you competed at Desert Vista?
I think there were more. I think there were more than there were today. Like I said, I think there's many programs today that are a combination of a few different high school programs when I was playing.
Because I know Pinnacle's a combination of Horizon and Pinnacle now.
Yeah, Horizon used to have its own separate team. Yeah. Desert Vista is now both Desert Vista and Mountain Point, who had separate teams.
Wow.
Scottsdale High School obviously used to be
Desert Mountain. Yeah.
Right, Desert Mountain used to have its own separate team.
Yeah.
And there were good players on these teams.
Yeah.
Right? If these teams were, getting 20 pieced every game, we would say, well, like what was really lost? But they weren't. These were competitive teams. Of course, like the league was still top heavy, like it is today. But there were, college caliber players on each of these teams.
Yeah, I think you bring up a conversation that we've alluded to, I think, in a few episodes, and definitely something I think in the off season I'd love to help facilitate with some people. I mean, I'm involved in the league now, obviously, and just I think the growth of the sport is so important, and we need to make good decisions and put time and effort in that helps that happen. I've been pretty open, I think in at least the conversation we did an episode with, my brother Cody, who was coaching at GCU, and Pat, and, I came out here 5 years ago and I was excited about kind of the future of lacrosse. And truthfully, I feel like we're a little stagnant right now. I sort of expected it to grow a bit more. And I think that we've got to have some, pretty transparent conversations about that. So I think definitely something for the future, and we'll certainly keep you in mind.
This one's out of my pay grade. Like I'm doing my best. If you have any ideas on how I can help more, I'm trying to do my best, but how to solve this problem and directing people in the right ways to grow Arizona lacrosse.
I think you're already doing a really good thing with, developing, stud face-off guys that are going to go out and, compete at the next level and represent, Arizona lacrosse. I mean, they're going to show up on a college roster and they're going to have, Arizona as their state. And, kind of speaking to that a little bit, do you have any players that you want to shout out specifically that are going to be playing at the next level next season?
We already have, so there are already a couple. And I like to attest to what you said. I have a buddy who coaches at Colorado College who shot me a text that, man, you have a lot of good face-off guys in Arizona, and that was the best feeling.
Wow.
Because it's just, I mean, they'll get good, and the hope is that they help everyone around them get better. And that like the sort of thing happens with every other position. But if we can start, Brian, if we can start with goalies and face-off guys, like that'd be great. Start making it so that Arizona's known for those positions. You get recruiters and coaches spending more time here, and all that's going to do is pour more resources into the rest of the talent development here. But yeah, there are a ton of players to shout out. I don't want to start with high school because I'll end up going through about 30 kids that I think really have potential to play at the next level. There's a lot of kids taking an interest in face-off in multiple programs, and now they have the resources that we haven't had in the past few years. I think there'll be a lot of face-off guys playing at the next level. But right now, I really don't want to forget anyone. So Patty Frazier is a Chaparral alumni, and he is a senior at Manhattan College now. So he's a Division I lacrosse player. He's a Division I face-off guy. He's at Manhattan. Him and I worked a little bit last summer, and he's great. It's a little bit hard to work with him because he's a Division I athlete in the middle of his career. And then there were two freshmen last year who went and played at college lacrosse, or they're freshmen this year, and that's Drew Klingman out of Oro Valley is now playing at Concordia Irvine.
We played against him last year. That kid was a monster.
He is a he is a monster. And to talk face-offs for a moment, what's interesting about Drew, we'll see if I get a message from Drew for saying this, but Drew doesn't have I think he'll admit this. Drew doesn't have the fastest hands. If you watch him face off against other really elite talent, Drew won't beat those guys in clamps cleanly consistently. Some face-off guys rely on their hand speed, and kind of win every clamp, win it forward. Drew's not like that. Drew is a really well-rounded face-off guy that if he loses the first clamp or first two clamps, he'll immediately transition into defensive moves. And I think that coaching against him, he was so difficult to play against. Because even if you had a good day against him, even if you were, a little bit faster than him that day, he was going to make sure that you weren't winning more than 50% of the face-offs, whatever it took. Drew's a great kid, and he works really, really hard. And it was a pleasure to work with him over the past year and a half, 2 years. And then the last one is Bennett Matzler, who's also playing Division II lacrosse. He's playing at North Greenville. Early on in the season, Bennett was actually top 5 in Division II for face-off percentage. I think as his schedule's gotten a little bit tougher, and he's faced some more of the upperclassmen, and now they're paying a little bit more attention to him and game planning for him, he's dropped a little bit, but I think he's still in the top 20, top 15 in Division II right now for face-off percentage, which is awesome as a freshman.
Wow,
And it feels, it feels good. I mean, I don't think I did much. I think it's all Bennett just working hard, but I think I just kind of paved the road for him, and he drove through it.
Yeah, well, I think just setting the standards and elevating the level of play at the position across the board here has been super important to growing the sport. And I know we've had you for a while, so I don't want to take it too much longer. Let's just last question we like to ask people just for fun here. So when you're not kind of grinding away at the face-off X and training guys, what do you like to do off the field? What are your hobbies?
My hobbies. So
do you collect anything?
Yeah. So I play guitar.
Okay.
That's probably my favorite hobby.
That's a new one. We haven't heard guitar
I love
yet.
that. Yeah. See, our guests are so talented,
nice.
Multi-talented.
Thank you. It's nice to maybe there's something to do with the hand speed and having a lot of dexterity with your wrists and stuff. But it's nice to have an artistic outlet that you can kind of pour your emotions into. I really enjoy it. For my day job, I actually I'm finishing up my PhD in chemistry, so that's really what I spend most of my time doing. I would also consider that a hobby because
wow,
I love science. I love that job. It's great. I get to be a scientist all day.
Smart guy.
So science, guitars, and face-offs, and that doesn't really leave a lot of room for anything else, to be honest.
That's a good range, though. That's a good range to have, and well, listen, we appreciate you. Excuse me, here, being on the podcast and giving your history and your experience and everything. So thank you, and looking forward to see your players continue to compete both at the ALL and at the next level. And see what you can do to help continue to elevate the game out here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me on. I think, as we mentioned, we talked about doing things to build the lacrosse culture in Arizona, and I think what you guys are doing is a huge part of that and does a lot for the culture. So thanks, Brian. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. That was awesome. I hope we got some face-off guys in the valley that listen to this, and hopefully they reach out if they want to kind of take their game to the next level.
I hope so too.
All right, awesome. Have a good night.
All right, thanks. Thanks for tuning in to episode 6 of the AZ LAX Report. Be sure to check out our Instagram for the LAX numbers in-state rankings, and be sure to tune in next week for playoff predictions and the bracket challenge. Thanks.